All right, Niners fans, buckle up because there's a lot to unpack from the last game and for what is coming next. Let's start with the good news, because it is always better to hear that first. Brock Purdy came out of the game feeling confident, even addressing that small toe issue and saying it is not something that will hold him back. For a quarterback who has already carried so much pressure on his shoulders in such a short career, knowing that he is physically good to go is a huge sigh of relief. He moved well, he looked composed at times, and while there were mistakes, the biggest positive is that he is not dealing with an injury that could linger into the next matchup. And then there's Jauan Jennings. This guy is the definition of toughness. Right after the game, he made it clear that he fully expects to be out there on Thursday against the Rams. That is massive news, because if you go back to last season, you remember what Jennings did when the Niners were shorthanded. No Debo, no George Kittle, no Christian McCaffrey, yet Jennings rose to the occasion and delivered what was arguably the best performance of his career. That game showed he is not just a role player. He could be a difference maker when the spotlight hits him. So hearing him already talking about being ready to play despite the brutal hits he took is something the team and fans should be excited about. But football is never just about the good moments. This last game was messy, and there is no way around it. The 49ers managed to rack up nearly 400 yards of offense, which is impressive on paper, but when you peel back the layers, you see how many opportunities slipped away. Between turnovers, dropped passes, and some questionable decisions, the Niners made things much harder for themselves than they needed to. You cannot turn the ball over 4 times in the NFL and expect to coast to a win. The fact that the game was still within reach until the very end is proof that this team has the talent to hang with anyone, but also a reminder that they have to be sharper in crucial moments. Now, let's talk about the referees. Nobody likes blaming officials for a loss, and the Niners had plenty of chances to take control of that game without outside help. But some of those calls were brutal. That declined penalty situation, a total mess, especially because Shanahan was already trying to get clarification before the play even went off. Then the phantom pass interference on Upton Stout, which honestly looked like textbook coverage, not a foul. And that so-called catch by Travis Hunter that was ruled complete? Come on, anyone watching the replay could see the ball wasn't secured when it hit the ground. It is frustrating because in the heat of the moment, you cannot overturn something that was called a catch on the field. So the Niners were left trying to fight not just the Jaguars, but also officiating that felt tilted against them. Still, as much as it burned in the moment, that cannot be the excuse. Championship teams find ways to win despite bad breaks, and the Niners know it. Special teams also did the squad no favors. Giving up that punt return touchdown was a backbreaker. Those plays swing games, and this one was no different. If you take that one moment away, San Francisco probably walks away with a win despite all the turnovers. That is how costly it was. Add to it the sloppy tackling on returns, the mental mistakes like unnecessary penalties, and you see an area that has to be cleaned up immediately. On the flip side, they did manage to come up with one blocked field goal, which is about the only bright spot from that unit. But you cannot rely on that one play to balance out all the negatives. On offense, beyond Purdy's mixed bag, there were some individual performances worth highlighting. Christian McCaffrey continues to be a beast in the passing game, leading the team in receptions once again. That makes 4 straight weeks where he has been the top target through the air, which says as much about his consistency as it does about the injuries at wide receiver. 17 carries for under 50 yards on the ground doesn't look great, but 6 catches for over 90 yards keeps him in that star category. The drops, though, are becoming a concern. 3 in 2 games is not what you expect from McCaffrey, and that one bobble that turned into an interception was a real gut punch. Still, his ability to break off big gains after the catch is unmatched, and the Niners need every ounce of it with some of their other guys banged up. Then there's Ricky Parrall. His one-handed catch falling on his back was pure highlight reel material. One of those plays you have to watch a few times just to believe it actually happened. Unfortunately, he looks unlikely to suit up on Thursday, judging by his post-game demeanor. If he does miss, the silver lining is that he will have almost 2 full weeks to heal before the next game. That could be exactly what he needs to return at full strength. Jake Tonjes also deserves some credit. Coming in injured, moving slow after certain plays, yet still managing to make clutch catches, including a touchdown. That is the kind of heart and grit that inspires teammates. Defensively, it was a strange outing. On one hand, they completely shut down drives when the Jaguars started with good field position off turnovers, holding them to field goals instead of touchdowns. That is winning football, even if it doesn't always feel like it. But the lack of pressure on Trevor Lawrence is alarming. Not a single quarterback hit all game. Not one. You cannot let a quarterback of that caliber sit back untouched for 4 quarters. Nick Bosa is always going to draw extra attention, but someone else has to step up. To their credit, they held the run game in check outside of that one long touchdown and a couple of chunk plays. For most of the afternoon, they were solid against the ground attack. Fred Warner was flying all over the field, setting the tone like he always does, and rookie D. Winters looked sharp with double-digit tackles. Upton Stout had what should have been a momentum-shifting interception, only to see it erased by that questionable flag. That was tough to watch because he earned that play. The drive summaries tell the story perfectly. Too many stalled possessions, too many turnovers right when the Niners were gaining momentum. A fumble here, an interception there, a drive ending with a drop in the end zone. The offense would string together beautiful long possessions and then self-destruct. Meanwhile, Jacksonville kept getting short fields thanks to special teams blunders and turnovers. Yet the defense bent, but did not break over and over. That is why the game was still alive late in the fourth quarter. And even then, it felt like San Francisco was on the verge of pulling off a wild comeback, marching the length of the field for a score when Brock Purdy kept plays alive with his legs and his improvisation. But when you ask your offensive line to hold off defenders for more than 4 seconds, sometimes disaster strikes. That late fumble, caused by former Niner Arik Armstead, sealed it. You cannot pin that entirely on Purdy. He escaped the first rusher brilliantly, but when the second hand comes swiping and almost immediately, it is simply too much pressure for one play. Still, there were flashes of brilliance scattered throughout the chaos. Jennings coming back after what looked like a rib injury that could have kept him out, McCaffrey grinding through mistakes to put up another 90-plus receiving yards, the defense refusing to fold after sudden changes, and Perrall pulling off a circus catch that will be remembered even in a loss. The potential is there, the resilience is there, but the execution has to match it from start to finish. Looking back at the way the drives unfolded, it becomes clear why the Niners were constantly chasing stability. Early on, you had long red lines on the chart that should have ended in touchdowns, but finished with field goals or worse, turnovers. That second drive was a perfect example. The offense moved the ball with ease, the rhythm was there, and you thought points were guaranteed. Then suddenly a fumble cut it short. The next time they got something going, another interception killed the momentum. It was the kind of day where every good thing seemed to be paired with a self-inflicted wound. The defense kept getting dragged back out onto the field, and you could almost feel the exhaustion building with each possession. Even the 3-and-out that came after one of those turnovers felt like a gut punch because the defense had just bailed the team out, only to be sent back out immediately. That cycle wore them down. Before halftime, there was another brutal moment when Jawan Jennings had a chance to come down with a touchdown in the end zone, and it slipped through his hands. 99 times out of 100, Jennings makes that catch, and Brock Purdy had placed the ball exactly where only his receiver could get it. Instead of a touchdown, they settled for another field goal. These are the small plays that swing games, and they piled up in this one. Then right out of the break, the offense delivered a strong drive, capped by a touchdown and a successful 2-point conversion. That sequence showed exactly what this group is capable of when everything clicks. The energy completely shifted, the sideline came alive, and even though Jennings had taken that monster hit to his ribs, he somehow returned and continued fighting. His return alone symbolized the grit of this squad. But right when the tide seemed to be turning, another interception arrived. It is easy to point at the tip and say it was unlucky, but if you watch the trajectory of the ball, it felt destined to be trouble. Triple coverage is never the safest read, and while Purdy has shown he can layer throws in tight windows, this time it burned him. The first interception earlier in the game felt more like bad luck with Christian McCaffrey unable to extend for the ball, but this one cannot be brushed aside so easily. It was a poor decision at a critical moment. Later drives didn't get much cleaner. Kendrick Bourne dropped a pass that would have been a key first down, one of several drops he had on the day, and you could see the frustration written across his face. To his credit, he owned up to it, but owning up doesn't erase lost opportunities. One of the most painful possessions came late when Demarcus Robinson had a chance to convert on fourth down, but could not haul on Purdy's pass. To be fair, the ball was high, but those are the kind of plays veterans are expected to bring in when the game is on the line. Then came the heroic drive where the Niners started deep in their own territory, strung together play after play, and finished it off with a touchdown. Purdy rolled out, kept his eyes downfield, and looked like the fearless quarterback we have seen at his best. That drive gave everyone hope that the impossible comeback was unfolding right in front of us. And then came the dagger. On the final possession, with the game within reach, the offensive line collapsed. Purdy dodged one rusher brilliantly, but Arik Armstead, a familiar face, swatted the ball loose and ended it. No amount of composure from the quarterback can erase protection issues that glaring. If two defenders are on you within seconds, the odds are stacked against you. Looking at Jacksonville's drives only adds to the frustration. Time and time again, they started with favorable field position, rarely having to march the full length of the field. Between returns, turnovers, and penalties, the Jaguars were gifted opportunities all game long. The Niners' defense, though, deserves huge credit for holding them to field goals on multiple occasions. On one possession after a turnover that gave Jacksonville the ball already in scoring range, the defense stood tall and forced 3 straight incompletions, forcing a kick instead of a touchdown. That kind of resilience cannot be overlooked. D. Winters was everywhere, racking up tackles and making life difficult for the Jaguars, while Fred Warner once again led by example. These are the types of performances that show why San Francisco's defense is still the backbone of this team, even when the stat sheet doesn't tell the full story. And still, you cannot ignore the glaring problem of the pass rush. 0 quarterback hits across an entire game is unacceptable. Trevor Lawrence is good enough without being handed that much time in the pocket. If not for coverage holding up in key moments, this game could have gotten out of hand. The defensive front has to figure out how to generate pressure beyond Nick Bosa, because relying solely on him makes the unit one-dimensional. Against tougher offensive lines down the stretch, that will be exposed even more. It is a strange dynamic because against the run, they were mostly stout, bottling up plays at the line outside of a few chunk runs and one big touchdown. But against the pass, the lack of disruption stood out like a flashing neon sign. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to 49ers Zone and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the San Francisco 49ers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In a move that has left the entire NFL world buzzing, the San Francisco 49ers reportedly pulled off one of the most shocking maneuvers in recent memory, with whispers swirling that Micah Parsons, the Dallas Cowboys defensive superstar, could be heading to the Bay Area. Sources close to the situation suggest that talks between Parsons' camp and the 49ers have been intense and highly secretive, fueling speculation that a blockbuster deal could be on the horizon. Parsons, known for his explosive speed, relentless pass-rushing ability, and uncanny versatility, has been the cornerstone of the Cowboys' defense since being drafted. His potential move to the 49ers would instantly transform San Francisco's defensive landscape, pairing him with an already formidable front seven that has been dominant in recent seasons. Analysts are already imagining the nightmare matchups for opposing quarterbacks, as Parsons' combination of power and agility would complement Nick Bosa and the rest of the 49ers' pass rushers to create an almost unstoppable force. Fans and pundits alike have taken to social media in a frenzy, debating whether the 49ers front office would actually have the cap space and draft capital to make such a monumental acquisition. Some insiders suggest that the Cowboys could be seeking a massive package in return, including multiple first-round picks and a key young player, which would make the trade one of the most talked about in decades. The mere idea of Parsons swapping the Lone Star State for the Golden Gate has ignited heated discussions, with some questioning whether this could mark a shift in the balance of power in the NFC. While nothing is confirmed, the rumor alone has already caused shockwaves across locker rooms and sports talk shows. Imagine Levi's Stadium filled with fans wearing jerseys of a player they never expected to see in red and gold. Parsons running sideline to sideline, terrorizing quarterbacks from coast to coast. Whether this is just a tantalizing whisper or the beginning of a seismic shift in the NFL, one thing is certain. The 49ers have captured the league's attention, and every fan is now watching closely, wondering if the impossible is about to happen. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the San Francisco 49ers, make sure to subscribe to 49ers Zone and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.